Wishing all followers of the Muslim faith a happy Eid al-Fitr. Welcome to our news broadcast. Here are the headlines. President Alfa Conte arrives in Asmara for a two-day working visit. alMubarak elected as fifth Patriarch of the Eritrean Orthodox twoday Church. Rockets pound Israel after militants killed. More than 4,000 Indians die of COVID-19 for second straight day. In our domestic news, on the invitation of President Isaias Afwerki, President of the Republic of Guinea, His Excellency Alfa Conte, arrived in Asmara today in the afternoon hours for a two-day working visit. On arrival at the Asmara International Airport, President Alfa Conte and his delegation were accorded warm welcome by President Isaias Afwerki. Mr. Usman Saleh, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Presidential Advisor Mr. Yaman Gabrab were present at the welcoming ceremony. In a meeting the two heads of state and their delegations conducted in the evening hours today at the State House on enhancement of bilateral relations and continental issues of mutual importance, both sides agreed for Eritrea and Guinea to cooperate in the political, diplomatic and developmental sectors, especially in education and health. Recognizing that Africa is facing numerous challenges and problems, but is simultaneously endowed with greater endowments and opportunities, the two heads of state agreed to work together for the promotion of cooperation among African states and the renaissance of the African continent. Accompanied by President Isaias Afwerki, the visiting high-level delegation, headed by President Alfa Conte, also toured the main avenues of Asmara this evening on foot. During his working tour, President Alfa Conte will also visit different development projects in Eritrea. It is to be recalled that President Alfa Conte, during his visit to Massawa in February of 2019, conducted extensive discussion with President Isaias on Africa's rightful place and role in the global order, among other matters. His Holiness Abuna Erlos has been elected as fifth Patriarch of Eritrea's Orthodox twoday Church in election conducted today in Asmara in accordance with the norms and regulations of the Holy Synod and the Church. Representatives of monasteries, dioceses, administrations and departments of the Holy Synod, as well as representatives of theological colleges and virtually representatives of dioceses from abroad, participated in the electoral process. The official consecration of Abuna Erlos will take place on June 13 next month. Abuna Erlos was Archbishop of Eritrea Diocese. Eid al-Fitr al-Mubarak was colorfully celebrated nationwide today, 13 May, with prayers and congregation of the faithful held in all mosques in compliance with the COVID-19 guidelines. In the message he delivered in connection with Eid al-Fitr, Sheikh Salim Ibrahim Salim, head of the office of the Mufti, wished happy Eid to the Eritrean people in general and the followers of Islamic faith in particular, as well as the Eritrean Defense Force, and called for respecting the regulations issued to control the spread of COVID-19 pandemic for the sake of the safety of the people. Sheikh Salim also called on the faithful to extend hands to the needy. The water and soil conservation as well as irrigation farming activities that have been conducted over the past 30 years of independence has significant contribution in the development of agriculture in the country. According to Mr. Mikhail Berhane, head of Natural Resources and Irrigation Farming Development at the Ministry of Agriculture, 257,000 hectares of terraces and 4.5 million cubic meters of water diversion schemes have been constructed with a view to redress the environment and boost agricultural production. Irrigation, indicating that the number of dams and microdams that numbered 138 before independence have currently increased to 785, and that attests to the substantial investment made by the government. Mr. Mikel went on to say that the increased number of dams and microdams have significantly contributed in enriching the underground water and in the development of irrigation farming. Mr. Mikel also called on farmers to use compost, natural fertilizers with a view to enrich the soil and thereby boost agricultural production. Those are domestic news. Please stay tuned for the international right after the short break. Hamas militants have launched dozens of rockets at Israel after Israeli airstrikes killed senior commanders and felled 3 multi-story buildings in Gaza. The escalation of the fighting, which began on Monday, has prompted the UN to warn of a full-scale war. The conflict has also triggered a wave of street violence in Israel between Jews and Israeli Arabs. Political leaders have appealed for calm. At least 67 people in Gaza and 7 people in Israel have been killed. The fighting erupted on Monday after weeks of rising Israeli-Palestinian tension in East Jerusalem, which culminated in clashes at a holy site revered by Muslims and Jews. For a second day, there was violence in areas of Israel with mixed Jewish and Arab populations. More than 374 people were arrested and 36 officers were injured, Israeli police said. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking late on Wednesday night, said he planned to send in military forces to help police maintain order in cities ruptured by violence. Palestinian militants have been firing rockets into Israel since Monday night, and Israel has responded by hitting targets in the territory. This morning, the IDF said about 1,500 rockets had been fired from Gaza into Israeli cities since hostilities escalated at the start of this week. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says that more than 400 people have been injured there since the conflict began, in addition to the 67 who have died. India recorded more than 4,000 COVID-19 deaths for a second straight day today, while infections stayed below 400,000 for a 4th day, although the virus has become rampant in rural areas where cases can go unreported due to lack of testing. Experts remain unsure when numbers will peak, and concern is growing about the transmissibility of the variant that is driving infections in India and spreading worldwide. Brahmar Mukherjee, a professor of epidemiology at the University of Michigan, said most models had predicted a peak this week and that the country could be seeing signs of that trend. Still, the number of new cases each day is large enough to overwhelm hospitals, she said on Twitter. The key word is cautious optimism. The situation is particularly bad in rural areas of Uttar Pradesh, India's most populous state, with a population of over 230 million. Television pictures have shown families weeping over the dead in rural hospitals or camping inwards to tend the sick. Bodies have washed up in the Ganges, the river that flows through the state, as crematoriums are overwhelmed and wood for funeral pyres is in short supply. According to the Health Ministry data, India has 362,727 new COVID-19 infections over the last 24 hours, while deaths climbed by 4,120. Uganda's Yoweri Museveni has been sworn in for his 6th term as the president, as police surrounded the home of Bobi Wine, his main opposition rival, who described the inauguration as a sham. Museveni, who won re-election in January despite widespread reports of irregularities, took the oath of office on Wednesday at the ceremony in the capital Kampala that was broadcast on national television and attended by several African heads of state and other foreign dignitaries. The 76-year-old, wearing a dark blue suit and his trademark wide-brimmed hat, promised to pay true allegiance to the country he has ruled non-stop since taking power as a rebel leader in 1986. His victory in January was overshadowed by the bloodiest pre-election crackdown in years, with opposition candidates forcibly prevented from campaigning and dozens of protesters killed by security forces. Bobi Wine, who came second to Museveni in the ballot but declared the vote rigged, said police and soldiers had besieged his home on the outskirts of Kampala and prevented him from leaving. Kizza Besigye, an opposition veteran who lost against Museveni in 4 disputed and often violent presidential elections, was also placed under an effective house arrest. Police spokesman Fred Enanga described the measure as normal precautions taken to protect Bobi Wine and Besigye. A 3-day ceasefire agreed by the warring Taliban and Afghan forces came into force today, Thursday, 13 May, after weeks of intense clashes throughout the country. Proposed by the militants and agreed by President Ashraf Ghani, the truce marks the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr. Violence has intensified in the country since Washington missed a May 1 deadline agreed with the Taliban last year to withdraw all of its troops. It will be only the 4th pause in fighting in nearly 20 years of conflict and is expected to give respite to Afghan families as they celebrate Eid. Tens of thousands of Afghans have been killed and millions have been displaced by the conflict, which has seen a resurgent Taliban take hold of large swaths of the country. The militants and the Afghan government launched peace talks in September last year, but progress has stalled despite international effort to jumpstart the negotiations. Washington and NATO have pledged to withdraw their troops by September 11, leaving Afghan forces to defend themselves and protect the vulnerable population. Violence has rocked several provinces in recent weeks, and on Tuesday, the insurgents seized a district not far from the capital. A series of blasts outside a girls' school in the capital on Saturday killed more than 50 people, mostly teenage girls. Officials blamed the Taliban, who denied they were involved. Botswana and Zambia have inaugurated a road and rail bridge linking the two countries, marking the completion of a multi-million-dollar project aimed at easing congestion at border crossings and boosting trade. Stretching for 923 meters over the Zambezi River, the curved Kazungula Bridge provides a long-needed alternative route for haulers. Botswana's President Mokgweetsi Masisi said the bridge would open avenues for improved trade. He also said his country regarded Zambia as a key strategic partner in development, adding the project was a demonstration of the continued growing relations. Construction of the $559 million project began in December 2014, co-funded by the African Development Bank, the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, regional governments, and other grants. The bridge will facilitate regional freight transport by allowing trucks to bypass the notorious Bait Bridge border post between Zimbabwe and South Africa, which is perennially congested, with vehicles spending hours and sometimes days queuing to cross. And that was ours for tonight, dear viewers. It is good night from us. Happy Eid.